Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's proceed with this afternoon session of the workshop. We are starting a little late. We still hope that others will join in, and we are currently checking if there is a possibility that we slightly postpone the bus that will take us to the gala dinner tonight of half an hour, so that we still have the time that was planned for this very interesting session that will be co-facilitated by our dear colleagues Francesco De Franco, you all know from Torre Guaceto, and Paul Seasal, communication expert, and I leave you the floor.
Good afternoon. Maybe if I, okay. Just a couple of words before to start. Okay. I'm Francesco De Franco. I'm coming from MPAs Torre Guaceto. We are two facilitators that are in this session with the 2-point perspective, because I am coming from a management body. It is a public body, so I have an idea of communication. Paul now introduced himself and as professional in communication. So for you.
Je vais parler en français. Donc si vous avez la traduction. Vas-y toi. You work? Yes. Okay. Donc bonjour à tous. Je m'appelle Paul Seasal. Je viens de Nice en France. Et donc, je vais vous parler je vais me présenter rapidement en fait pour que vous connaissiez un petit peu mon métier. C'est un univers qui est un petit peu différent de celui dont vous avez l'habitude sur les MPA. Moi, mon univers à moi, ce sont les territoires. Et en fait, mon job, c'est le marketing territorial. Donc, marketing, c'est devenu un gros mot, un vilain mot. Mais en fait, quand on fait vraiment du marketing pur, c'est un métier formidable. Alors, je ne vais pas vous en parler trop longtemps, mais disons que quand on parle de marketing au niveau des territoires, on va parler de deux choses. On va parler de l'offre et on va parler de la demande. Alors, concernant l'offre, l'objectif, c'est de faire en sorte qu'un territoire soit le plus attractif, il soit compétitif et il soit aussi résilient. Et pour ça, on va parler et on va développer des projets. Ce sont des projets. Moi, je travaille beaucoup dans le tourisme. Je fais partie du syndicat national de l'ingénierie touristique. Donc, je travaille pour les administrations locales, je travaille pour les investisseurs privés. Et mon job, c'est de faire en sorte qu'un projet touristique il corresponde à la fois à l'identité du territoire, à la réalité, à l'histoire du territoire, à la volonté des politiques, mais également aux tendances du marché et également de ce que font les concurrents. Donc, on met tout ça en fait dans une marmite et ensuite on va travailler sur la stratégie. Donc, je ne travaille pas simplement dans le tourisme, je travaille aussi dans tous les projets urbains, dans des projets de centres commerciaux, etc., avec toujours la même dynamique. D'ailleurs, quand on fait un projet de territoire, on a toujours des gens qui sont leaders et puis on a toujours des gens qui sont opposés à un projet. Et donc, le travail de collaboration avec les parties prenantes, c'est quelque chose qui va se retrouver dans tous les projets. Alors, ça, c'est pour l'offre. Je vais être très court, hein, mais sur la demande, on va parler d'image d'un territoire. Donc, on va travailler sur l'image. Et à ce titre-là, moi, je travaille beaucoup avec les agences de communication. Et c'est comme ça que je me suis rapproché en fait, de l'univers des AMP, puisqu'on a eu une première mission pour le MedPAN il y a environ 2 ans, pour les aider à définir une stratégie de communication. Et là, avec MedPAN, donc ça, c'était avec une agence qui s'appelle une agence Nocta, une agence de Nice. Et puis, sur MedPAN, aujourd'hui, on a 2 missions en cours. Une mission avec le groupe Bastel, sur la stratégie de communication également. Et puis, un autre pour travailler sur un PowerPoint destiné aux managers pour faire la promotion des no take zones. Voilà, j'espère que je n'ai pas été trop long. Francesco, je te relaisse la parole.
Okay, we have on the screen the rules that we already discussed about the conduction of the meeting, so we can go very fast on this. This is again the idea about the word, the concept of MPA management effectiveness, but we can also go. Okay, I am authorized for that. Okay, this is the panels, the speaking that are planned today. I think we have a problem with one of the speaker. We think. Okay, but we can manage it because it's also a relevant topic, and we can discuss without also the speaker about this. As I said before, the speakers are on some topics that are relevant in terms also of the objective that we defined on this panel. Okay, there is no the objective. Where is the objective? After this. Okay. Oh, okay. Some technical problems. Okay. The objectives are to discuss, identify MPA values and management effectiveness indicators that can be used in the engagement and communication. So for me, from my point of view, it's a very relevant objective, because I'm coming from a public body, so I'm more interested to how to communicate with my local communities. That is a part of this topic, but we also discuss about how to use the communication to advance, to improve the knowledge about the MPA values, and also to have an effectiveness, and this is more a technical aspect about how to communicate and how to be effective in the communication, how to link these two aspects, because we are here for the effectiveness of the management, and now we can discuss this afternoon in order to clarify if the communication is part of this process of effectiveness, or is the final results. I don't know how to communicate the effectiveness of the management, and so we can discuss about this. I just prepare for my point of view, then Paul during the discussion can add also some aspect in the technicality of this aspect, but I just pointed out some relevant words for my point of view. We share with Pierre and also with Paul about how, for my point of view, is the finality of the final goal of the communication for a public body, for a body that is in charge in the management of public values. So I think that we can go very quickly to the first discussion. So we can call our friend Jorge Moreno in order to discuss about surveillance and awareness campaigns for voters in relation to Posidonia seagrass conservation. So the floor is yours. I see. Yes, yes, it's this one. I don't know when.
Now, can you hear me? Okay. Well, first, thank you for coming. I know it's very difficult to come after a boat trip like this. And well, if you are awake, it's enough, and we just try to maintain your eyes open. It doesn't matter if you don't listen. Okay, I will try to. I will explain you some communication campaign or something like this, with a special topic and with a special users, which is the one we have said for the voters in the protection of Posidonia oceanica in the Balearic Islands. It's not a topic about the protected area itself, because it's more than the protected area. You will see it, and it's a very particular stakeholder. Yes, what we do is something very, very easy that you have done many times, but you will see that at the end it's not bad to do things again and to reflect about things that are so common. Well, just about background about the Posidonia oceanica, this is about Baleares, but it's also applicable to the Mediterranean and the European Union. These are the laws, the legal framework that has to see with Posidonia in the Balearic Islands. We have some especially, which is the word legally, which is because some part of the Posidonia place in Formentera and between Formentera and the Isle of Ibiza has been declared World Heritage, and then let's say that it's a world legally established category. Also, there is the European legislation, which says the Habitat Directive that clarifies the habitat of Posidonia as priority and the special interest. Also, then the transposition of this to the Spanish legislation was made by the Law 42 in 2007. With law of conservation of natural habitat and wild fauna and flora. This legislation said that you have to develop some other tools, like a list of protected species, and that was done in 2011 by the Decree 139 that declared our list of protected species. And in this list of protected species, there are, I think it's 452 terrestrial and marine vegetables and fauna and flora, sorry. And only one of these species has a special note, a special remark, that is Posidonia oceanica. And it's in this case, it said, a part of this became to the list of protected species, recognized as protected species legally in Spain. It said that operation of anchoring and mooring can be regulated, especially by the regional or national government. So the legislator in this moment take in account that this was not one species more, because the protection of these 452 species is the same for an osprey that for Posidonia, but it's not the same, because you have an osprey, you have an eagle in a nest, a territory, you have individual couples, but Posidonia is all around, and it's a very wide habitat. But in this case, what they protect is the species, not the habitat. The habitat is protected by the directive, but also we protect the species. So that could take a lot of the legislator taking account that could be a very special case, and that, so they put this special remark in this decree. So what does it mean? That means that in this moment we have so many laws saying what is Posidonia in legally protection, and what things can you do or can you not do with a protected species, and then the way to interpret this can be such like doing nothing, like in many other countries, like you don't take care of if you anchor or if you take it. I mean they're not developed yet, and the other it has to can be just so strict. Just for example, that if you go to the beach and you take a little piece of Posidonia leaves dead in your feet, you are taking a piece of the protected species, so you can be penalty for that. So we said, what we have to put order in this, and especially why? Because it's protected in all the Mediterranean, Spanish Mediterranean. There are 5 regions that coastal region, but Balearic Island is the one that has most kilometers, most Posidonia, and most boaters, most nautic users. It's really enormous nautic tourism in the Balearic Islands. And so I said, well, I said to the politician, we will have a problem if somebody regulates this before us. So better we do it the first, and we establish how do we understand that, how to interpret this law. It is allowed to remove the Posidonia from the beach. It's allowed to take it, to replant Posidonia. It's allowed to anchor on Posidonia, or where, how to anchor. So then we develop a special decree that is for Posidonia conservation in the Balearic Islands. This has been the first one. I think there's not any other one. It was the first in the Mediterranean, and there's now another one in the Balearic. In the Comunidad Valenciana, in the Valencia region, that they copy from this. We helped them to develop it 3 years later, but because, well, the problem is common, but in this case we were the first. That means that, well, this decree says, try to analyze all the things that can be in relation. That means the limitation, cartography, penalty regime, regulation and prohibition of uses, project supervision. It creates also a Posidonia fund, which is a funding tool for doing projects in this, that it's taken by public money or private money if somebody wants to put money on this, and also for compensation measures. So this is money that will go only for Posidonia conservation in Balearic, and also creates the Posidonia committee with there are 28 persons there, all the stakeholders, nautical, university, boaters, fisheries, of course politicians. The president is the regional ministry, and then we create a decree just to say what we understand that this, how do we interpret this, how strict we are interpreting this protection, of course, according to the other laws that also be in this moment. Well, that means this is what I said you, that is not exactly about protected area, because I think that this is a good example of what is an OECM, another effective conservation measure, because with this we protect 630 square kilometers of territory, which is the extension of the Posidonia meadows in the Balearic Islands. So we are protecting in all the island and in all the coast this big surface, and this is going to be a very big challenge. Also, think that we are talking about Posidonia, a live Posidonia in the sea, but take also the Posidonia that goes to the beaches is also Posidonia. So this is not the surface. This is not included in this surface, but it also has to be related. So I mean that it takes a lot of different stakeholders and a lot of different interests, such as other administrations, because compared with coastal, with transport, with pollution, with tourism, with navigation, with other things, especially with sailors, especially with the navigation sector. Also with citizens, because there was a big movement to do this decree, and we have in the information process we have some difficulty again from NGOs against voters, and this created a very bad atmosphere because they were not, let's say, fighting, discussing, but in some ways in not the way that we like civil servants, like administration would like to know, because it were very the opposite positions. Of course, also scuba divers and people that tourism that live from the coast, press, ecologists, and NGOs, and social media. So we decided that we have to face this problem, because I told you that navigation was probably, we knew it was going to be the more complicated subject. So we said that we have to do something about mooring management and awareness raising. So we have to pay special attention to these stakeholders, because they were going to be the one that will feel more affected, and they will really be affected by this interpretation of the legislation that the Posidonia decree give to us. And I said, no time to waste, because in this case, our administration, our politicians, I have to congratulate them. They saw the problem, and they started with this campaign that I'm going to explain, which is very simple. It's things that just awareness that we do in many places, but in this case, especially to this sector. And they started in 2018. I say it because the decree was established in July of 2018. So at the same time that the decree was established, there was this campaign going on in this summer. What is we established a Posidonia surveillance service that is, I will explain you how it is. And the objectives of this service are information. The first thing is information to explain to the captains, to the users, to the nautical, to the sector, what is the regulation, how do it affect, what is real and what is not real. Because in this campaign that I told you during the participation process, it was something like, if you go with your boat out from a nautical navigator, you will have a penalty, because it's forbidden to have a boat. This is not real, of course, and we have to explain it and to do a special effort to communicate that we are not against navigators or boaters. We know that, and we accept, and it's obvious that we live in a community that lives from tourism. So we have to make it as compatible as possible. Of course, in our case, preserving the conservation of this protected species. Also, not only information, but also helping, assisting them to do the things well. Okay, so I would show you some tools that we use for that. Also checking with them how is if it's the correct anchor, the correct anchoring, yes, if they are doing well or not, and then with this assistant just trying to help them. This checking habits, that means that if change of habits, sorry, that means try, if you are not doing well, we will try you to do it well for the next time. Okay, that is what I want to write to this, to the collaboration with environmental agents and other authorities, another legal authorities. That means all the first objectives are information, are let's do it well, are good moments, good communication. But if there is not a possibility of doing, if they don't want to follow this, of course, we have to have some way to enforce it and to do it. So, but I think that this is the last one that we want to apply in this situation. It's something that I will say, if you forbid somebody to something to somebody, like administration, it's legal, it's necessary that you also help them to do it well. Not just, you cannot do that. So what can I do? You have to explain it, not just saying this is forbidden and this is your problem. How to do it? No, let's see how you can do it. And this is what we do with this is a service with in this year there are 18 boats. I'm going to give you the results of the 2021 campaign, because the campaign of this year has not finalized it yet, because the weather is the boats are still on the water, and we have postponed the end of the campaign, so that the results are not ready at this moment. But at least that we put a number of boats to do this information and this assist to the boaters. In this case, we have 18 boats this year, but till last year we have 15 boats divided in all the island. In which areas? These areas where there's much Posidonia, and also there are many boats. There are areas that, well, we cannot take the 1,500 kilometers of coast that we have in Balearic Islands, but we go to these places where it's more intensive the usage, and we try to reach as much person as possible. There is not only these 15 boats, because there are also some marine protected area, like for example, National Park of Cabrera. There are also boats for any other services. So at least there are 28 boats that are 27 involved in this information and this awareness and policy service. What do we do? Well, we go to the boats and to these areas, and we check how if they are and when they are anchoring, and we check if the anchor is out of Posidonia, because you can in Posidonia meadows where you can anchor on the sand, yes. And then if not only we started only with the anchor, but now we are also following the length of the chain. So because the chain can go around and also take Posidonia away. And then the first is to check it and see if the anchor is in the sand, and then we inform the captains about all this legislation. Very, very simple, just in what they are interested in is what can you do and how can you do it well. Okay. We have a radio channel, especially for this campaign, which is called channel 68 Marine. And they can call us if they have any doubt. Also, we put some other tools just to help them. And we put since 2 years ago, it was not in the beginning, but we put it in 2 years ago, a Posidonia telephone. What is this? It's a telephone where you can call if you have any doubt, anything to say about Posidonia. I don't mean about if you like or not, if you, especially for the nouns, for if you are seeing something that is not well, and also for to many people ask, well, I'm arriving to Mallorca with my boat. I come from Alicante. What can I do with it? Then we explain, and there is a website, there is an application, I will explain now, and we give them the information by telephone, by email, or by WhatsApp. And one thing very important of this is what I said. We didn't start in the first year, but we do it in the next one with a project paid by the eco tax, which is a touristical tax that we take in Balearic. And it's that you see that 112 is the emergency phone, and we cancel that people could phone there just to report that I think there is a boat that may be in Posidonia. Why don't you bring some police to some rangers to penalty them or to see? Because the problem is that in summer there were in the beginning, especially in the first year, such number of calls that they collapsed this number. And the U2 is not a number to say that somebody is on Posidonia. It's something to call an ambulance because there's an accident or there's a fire or something really that needs the attention of the emergency. So this is the best, one of the best things that we are with this, but that now people don't call this number just to say that there is a boat that maybe is on Posidonia, because we have hundreds and hundreds of calls for this. They can call to this Posidonia number, then the person that is there will contact with the boat that is closer to the area and try, if it's possible, because sometimes it's very far away, if it is possible, just to attend them and to see what is happening.
5 minutes.
Okay, just enough. Well, another tool is to help them to see where to anchor. When you arrive to another, sometimes because of the turbidity of the water, sometimes because it's dark in the night, you don't know if there is Posidonia or not. So if we say to you that you cannot anchor in Posidonia, the last thing that we can do is to tell you where is the Posidonia. So with another project paid also by this eco tax, we make Atlas Posidonia, which is the Posidonia cartography. We make the cartography of all the islands, and we map all these 630 kilometers with more or less 1 meter of distance. This you can visit these maps in the Posidonia website, but also we make an application that in the telephone you can just put where you are, and it tells you if you can anchor or not there, or if there's the possibility of causing damage to Posidonia. And even you can put a buffer radio to say, well, I have 20 meters of chain, so I'm here, and what's 20 meters, 40 meters around? And then the application tells you if there is possibility or not, if there is sand enough, if sandy bottom enough or not, to anchor this boat. So you can put the distance depending of the size of your boat. This is the application. This is what you see in green is the This is an area, so if you put, if your boat is here, it will be in red. If your boat is there, it will be in green. Okay. Anyway, well, we say, well, check, have a look if you can, if there's water clarity or a light, have a look and try to do it. Okay, with this action, we have some control. Yes, many of the boats that were informed, and the majority, I will give you the numbers, were committed with the completion terms of the law, and they prefer to do, like I always said, they prefer to do things better. But in case that there is not a positive answer, and they say, I'm not going to move, it is possible. This happens many times, not many, but in some, especially with people that rent a boat. You rent a charter boat for 2 or 3 days, and you are going to make an excursion depending. It doesn't matter if the sea is rough or not. You have paid for this, or you have these days available. And so these people is very, they are not common users. Yes, the common users select where and when do they take their boats, but the people that are just passing for there is more complicated, especially some with some nationalities that I will not say now, but one of them is in war. And well, for doing that, we have the policy, the Guardia Civil, which is like Carabinieri, I think here. Yes, and also the ranges of the environmental ranges, that they are 80%, but not for President. This is for all natural conservation in the Balearic, and if it's necessary, we can call them. They patrol with us some days, not in all boats, not in all days, but they patrol some days with us. And if there is some problem with this and they're available and closer, they can. So we can enforce in case and put a penalty in the case that they don't accomplish. And these are the results. Here you have the numbers. What I say is, this is informed boats. This is boats that we talk with the captains of our boat, talk with the captains of the other boats. Just they communicate. This is boats assisted. This is boats that ask to do something. I am here. What can I do? They phone to this number. They use the 68 channel that I said. So this is also boats that, but they ask for assistance. In this case, what I want to say is that there is communication, direct communication again with the captain. And in total, this is 2021, 121,000 boats were checked. That means that those, if you go and you see that the boat is perfect, the majority of them, we don't say anything. And many times also you almost know the captain because they are frequently going there. So see these numbers, because this is very important. That means almost 10,000 and 700, so that means that 17,000 of boats have been talking with our staff in this service during 2021, and it's almost the same. It was almost the same in other years, even in 2020, because the pandemic in summer, and there were many boats who were going because it was an option chosen by many tourists to spend the holidays in the boats, just because to be closer to the same group of persons for the COVID security. And these are the results. In 2018, 27% of the boats were bad anchored. Yes. In 2019, it goes down to 10%. In 2020 to 7.8%, and in 2021 just to less than 5% of the boats. So people is understanding. People want to do things well, and if you help, it is possible. So main conclusion. Well, the best one, the first one, boaters is a very sensitive group. It's not a usual group. It's a very special one. So communication must be especially careful and especially dedicated and planned to this group. Direct contact, face to face from ship to ship and at sea, it's an open door. I mean, it's not the same. Many times we say, well, we have been doing information. We are going to make a meeting to explain how you can do, and we do it in the university. We do it in a nautical club. No, in this case, you are doing it face to face and skipper to skipper. Yes, the captain of the boat to the skipper of our patrol boats. So they speak the same language, at least. Yes, and this is the best way to communication. And also you do it where they are in the sea, not in the university, not in a club, not in a theater. Oh, sorry. If you choose any indicator in this process, is better that you use quantitative indicators, like for example number of boats moved, because it's very difficult to discuss with this. So in this case, it's better to use not quality, because each one has a different perception of the sea. But the use of technical tools is very facilitated the objectives, because it gives availability to the information. And what I have said today 2 or 3 times, and I will say again, the vast majority prefer to do things right, especially if you have them. However, you always have to have a tool at hand to enforce the law, just these ranges or something like this. So translating it to conclusion, and this is the last. Recommendation one, due to peculiarities of the native sector, it is necessary to design an awareness strategy based on a direct contact, both personal and professional. Okay, not only face-to-face, but also professional to professional, skipper to skipper. Number 2, whenever possible, choose objectives and quantitative indicators. The way of perceiving and evaluating nautical experience is different from each user. It's not the same a person that has a 60-meter boat that the person that has an 8-meter boat. They look for different things, and they perceive different sensations, and they perceive different freedom and different objectives. So it's very important to do it in this way. And then the other one is do not establish legislation provisions that you are not able to enforce, and always have a law enforcement alternative around to do it. Well, this is all, Abela. And well, if you have any question, there's a question.
Maybe you can use this one. Okay, thank you.
You are my,
yeah,
I don't know.
This is
Hello. Thank you for the presentation. I was in Formentera a year ago, and I have a scuba diving on the site, and it's really amazing what you did. And when you come to Ibis, immediately you are aware of what Posidonia is, and then in Formentera everything is everything. And so if you didn't know before what Posidonia is, you will find it there. My question is, you said a lot about communicating with nautical sector, and I find it one way of communicating, and then locals and local people that use boats, that have boats. How was the communication with them? I find it quite more challenging than with nautical sector, at least in Croatia. Tourists will usually obey, and with local community there is always, we used to use this area, why are you now coming, and saying. So what was your situation with locals? How did you communicate with them, and was it challenging, and what was the solution? Because locals usually have a smaller boat. The solution for them maybe it's not the same as nautical big boats. And thank you.
Well, this is what I said, that the perception of the freedom of being on a boat in the middle of the sea is completely different from one person to another, and in the same sites and the same they are local, but some of them like to go fishing, some of them don't like to fish, some of them like to go fast, or others prefer to go. So this is one by one. So what I mean with this is, of course, with the locals, because when I tell you that it is important to go on sea, to go in the place, in this moment, it's not like here that you came here because you want. You can choose another section and you can say, but if I go where you are there. So there, when you go to an area, the boats, some of them are foreigners, some of them are tourists, some of them are local, some of them are companies that are anchoring there. So most of these are locals. And in the beginning, for this lack of information and for this kind of information that we were against them, because this campaign of information with the some NGOs that were very aggressive, they made thousands of allegations to the decree because in the procedure of setting it, and they were really angry, and they're really constrained. But when they see that the administration is not against them and that you want to help, they valorize it. This application has been magic. It's just the thing that there's in many other places in the Mediterranean. There's one which is called Donia, I think is French, but is very good. And they evaluate that they can know if they are doing it well or not. And then what is difficult to explain in some moments is like if there's much Posidonia and there's a few sand areas, and if it is plenty of boats, so the problem is that you don't have space to anchor. So this is the role of this is to explain them and make them understand that this is not they cannot do it, and the solution is not to anchor on Posidonia, and they understand it because we just put the example. This is like the cinema. You go to the cinema, and if the hall is plenty, you have to go to the next session. So find another place or go to another place, and we can help you because we know that 3 miles from here there is another place where I have been speaking with my colleague, and they say that there is room enough for this. So I think that well, this was very accepted. And another thing which is important, you see this framework of legislation. You have been in Formentera. You said that they Formentera in the traffic lights. There is say Posidonia and stay calm. Posidonia is everywhere. So in this moment, people are intelligent, and people know that you cannot swim against this stream. So nobody can say that there's not a problem with destroying a piece of Posidonia. This discourse is not available now, and they know it. And not only because it's legally forbidden, it's also because it's logical. We're all the day opening the news. You are talking about climate change. You are talking about the environment. You are talking about wild forest fires. We are talking about the environment. So no, there is not option for those that want to say there's nothing happens if I anchor on Posidonia. They have completely reached this concept of this decision. So if the local and also one of the things that they tell us, the problem is not us, are the foreigners that come with the big boats. And I said, you are right. So we are going to take more attention to them. It's a process, and it's ongoing, and I think it's working, and we are and one thing at least that we can be proud and they recognize is that we are trying to do it. We are trying to help them. They feel that we are not against the nautical sector, okay? And this helps. Speaking with almost 20,000 voters during the summer, it's a good way to change the things.
Thank you for the presentation, Jorge. I wonder about the application. How did you communicate that? I wonder in what channels, and because you're mentioning that there are 20,000 boats in the peak season, for example, there. How many people are using the application, and in which channels are you communicating, or you communicated that?
Well, the application has been put in all the medias, and everybody we have talked about a lot because it was something. It was a big project. You know, this is a part of the mapping project of making the map. That was about €750,000, and so it has been communicated and it has been published a lot. So they all know. I think everybody knows that this is there. Also, we communicate directly with them. Also, we put it in the newspapers. But also, there's another thing, and this is an application for the Balearic Islands, which is called Posidonia. Okay. Oh, sorry. This is an application that you can use when you are in the Balearic Islands and have the best information available in the moment, which is our cartography, which is the last one. But as we did this cartography with public resources, we defend the and we establish and it has to be in this way. In spite of in some cases it does not. We said it has been paid by the citizens, so it has to be used by everyone. So that means that other applications, other companies has asked us to use our cartography, and we can have said yes for free. For example, this Doni application that is free for all the Mediterranean uses our cartography because it's the last update of the surface. But there is another one only for Formentera. Okay, it is free, and even if the university asks for it because they are making a study, it's free for everyone because it has been paid with public money.
Maybe there is some questions coming from the chat.
No, actually,
no.
It's just if you can
okay.
keep, be in front of the microphone.
Other questions?
Oh. Yeah, that's a short question. We already talked a bit about because yeah, actually, thanks for the presentation. It's a very good example, no, the Balearic for also the rest of Spain. Like in Comunidad Valenciana, I was working following the example of Balearic Islands. But I was wondering when you so in terms of engagement, what we found when we were informing the people, no, that anchoring in the Posidonia. Most of the users that we had in the Comunidad Valenciana, they were renting the boat just for one day, or so they didn't even know about anything about even driving a boat or where to anchor and things like that. Have you tackled that? So the renting companies for preventing this, because then yes, people that they are not every day in the sea, so that's also another problem, no? That they don't know.
Yes, of course. In the charter companies that rent boats are not informed, more than informed of this, and they have they know perfect the application, and they know perfect the rules. Because if you put a penalty to a boat, that will be also going to the company, and they don't want to have any problem. Also, not only for Posidonia, also for example, for the protected area. When you rent a sailing boat big enough in Balearic, especially if you do it in Mallorca, and especially if you do it in the south, they will tell you what you have to do if you want to go to Cabrera, because you cannot go there for free. You have to take a special permission, and they are interested that the customer are happy and they are satisfied. So they inform them because they are interested that they do the things the best way. Of course, these companies we have been working with them, and they are aware about that to the customers.
Just a quick question, but when you say sensitive group is like crazy and dangerous, when you say that boaters are sensitive group, you say crazy and dangerous, or only?
No, not crazy and dangerous.
Okay. Well, sensitive in terms. Okay.
They are crazy and dangerous people driving in these streets. Yes, but so there's everywhere. Okay. Even maybe somebody in this hall is crazy.
Yeah, Jorge, I wanted to ask, because it's an issue that I know like some areas, some MPAs are facing among these boat rentals company. Are you facing also these kind of Airbnb models, of boat rental that are like from individuals to individuals that are not regulated at all, or well, not regulated at all, that are like indeed like one individual renting a boat to another individual through a platform exactly like Airbnb? Do you have this as an issue in the Balearic or not? No.
We don't have it.
Paul, do you have any consideration? Okay. No, just to close. It's not a question, because we can go forward, but it's important topic for the managers, because we are not a touristic office. So we sometimes we need to make the unpleasant work to try to inform about the provision. So it's not easy to go under this task, because you need to also try to not use as like a police. So no, you don't, but you need to also to create some connection in order to have an answer coming from the the people that are the address of our communication. So it's very important. Okay, we can go.
So sorry, it's just what is what we try to do with this, that you know that you can say what we are doing is illegal, and it means that in the beginning, in spite of the law, it's on the state. In this moment it's working. We didn't put a penalty if you are doing it bad. If you move and you want to help us and you just move your boat, there is not a penalty unless for the first or the second time. If you are all the days there, okay, they take note of it of its license number and of the boat. We have all the numbers. So if you see a person that is coming all the days and doing the same, this is not a joke. Yes, but doing that, which is what I said, legally is not legal, not to apply to the law. But we said, okay, we will take 2 years, 3 years time just to inform, accepting this really dangerous and crazy person of such a big boat that came from another part of the and I want to know to say, okay, accepting for that, I think is the best tool.
Okay.
Because it's better to convince than to impose.
Just to take a couple of minutes to the next ghost presentation, just so we have enough time. No, just another question, because it's important about how you communicate in this information and awareness campaign the value that you are protecting. So because you can see, okay, no, it's not allowed, go out, or how to communicate why you are giving this prohibition or this rule.
Well, one of the things is just this prohibition is settled not only by the decree did not protect Posidonia. Posidonia was protected, so it was forbidden to cause damage to Posidonia. One thing that perhaps I didn't say very correct is that one of the main important things of this decree is that establish that anchoring on Posidonia causes damage, because this can be argued by an attorney in a judgment process. Say, no, I put my anchor, but how can you say that I broke any leaf of Posidonia? Okay, we talk with the scientific sector, of course, and they say, of course, some damage is made, and the legislation says that you cannot cause damage. No, it doesn't say much, less, or few, or many. Okay. So this is very important. And then about the importance of Posidonia, I can tell you that in the Balearic Islands, everybody knows what is Posidonia because it's something that is in the soup. So it's you eat it every day, and people is aware of that. But in any case, when they give this information, if they haven't read or they haven't listened to it, they explain what is Posidonia, why the water is clear, why they protect to the beaches, why it's an habitat where many species breeds and gives fish to the fishermen, why this clearness of the water, why it produces oxygen, why it sequestrates carbon. Be careful with the climate change. So they can and they do. But normally it's not necessary to explain much because people is aware that it's a very important ecosystem in the Balearic, of course, and everywhere. And the other thing is that what I told you, in this moment, it's very difficult to find somebody that defends that there's not any problem in not attend natural conservation. This established some decades ago, and it's growing and growing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that everybody agree with this, because maybe your business is another thing. You're an oil company, so you have to make your business also. But nobody can tell you that. Well, this is not the problem. We're doing nothing. What we can tell you is, okay, you are not doing a crime. Yes, you are not going to prison, but please do it well, because it's for the benefit of everybody. And this is really 99% of the people don't cause any problem.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
He's online. Okay, so I take him a couple of minutes. So Please don't zoom on this, please. I'm trying to have a double, but it's not possible. Yeah, thank you. Okay, now it's good. Can you hear me?
Hi, everyone. Yes, I can hear you.
The floor is yours.
Great, thank you very much. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here. My name is Julen Gonzalez, project director at Ecoaxa. Ecoaxa is a natural capital company located in Madrid, in Spain. First of all, apologies for not being able to attend the very interesting session and workshop in person. For many different reasons, I couldn't make it. So yeah, I hope I'm able to communicate and transmit the key messages of this presentation online. So yeah, let's move on. Next slide, please. Just very quickly about what is Ecoaxa for those of you that don't know. So Ecoaxa is, as I said, a natural capital consultancy based in Spain. So we basically help other companies and public organizations to improve their decision-making and communication around natural capital. So as you all know, the demands in terms of measuring and reporting impacts on biodiversity and natural capital is increasing over the years. So companies need to, again, report their impacts and dependencies on natural capital. So we help them do that work, basically. So we work, again, with different companies from different sectors, not only ocean and sea related sectors, but also energy and mining, forestry, and so on. And yeah, next slide, please. So what I'm gonna talk about today is a case study, a small work that we did in a marine reserve in Mallorca, in the Balearic Sea, as part of this project that I'm sure all of you know, the MPA Networks project. So this project that, just very quickly about the general idea of the project, this project started in 2019, and the goal was, as you may know, to provide solutions to different challenges. So for example, developing sustainable financial mechanisms and conservation of species, and so on and so forth. So part of that project or some of the case studies of that project were carried out in Spain, and one of the case studies is the one I will present today. Next slide, please. Yeah. So what is the goal, the message that I'm trying to bring here? So with the goal of effectively communicating the benefits of marine protected areas, MPAs, and to improve decision making, we developed the so-known natural capital, a natural capital accounting system or tool. I will explain later on what this means. We developed that system and we applied it in the marine reserve of fishing interest in Levant of Mallorca in Spain. So the system that we developed, the goal of that system is to, let's say, show and communicate the value and the benefits, the benefits of all the ecosystem services provided by that marine reserve, so that we enhance the conservation and sustainable use of all the resources, right? So the system that we made is scalable to different scales, is replicable anywhere, and transferable to other areas. So we did this work in the Mediterranean, but it can be applied anywhere else. So again, just the main goal of the work was, again, to account for the benefits that we all get from marine protected areas. Next slide, please. So just a very quick idea of what is natural capital accounting. So natural capital accounting is a tool or a framework to measure the changes in the stock of natural capital. So natural capital, as we all know, we are talking about the ocean, the sea, the soil, water, air. So all the resources in which our survival and wellness depend. So with natural capital accounting, you can track how these resources change over time, both in biophysical and economic terms. And as you can see on the right-hand side on this graph, the natural capital approach has many different, let's say, benefits. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but one of the main ones is that it provides a common integrated framework where you can integrate all kind of data, biophysical, qualitative, economic data, again, to show the benefits of protecting and conserving natural capital. And it also helps, let's say, raising awareness by reaching, let's say, policymakers and decision makers that are not that familiar with the environmental sector, because part of the results are given in monetary terms, as we will see in a bit. Next slide, please. So one of the main strengths of the project was that we used probably the most well-known framework and widely spread framework in natural capital, which is this one in the screen, the United Nations Framework for Natural Capital Accounting, the SIA framework. So this framework, again, allows anyone to carry out natural capital accounting assessments. So as you can see on the left, the framework has been, the use of the framework or the application of the framework has been increased or is being used more and more over the years. So by 2020, it has been applied already in 89 countries. And what you can see on the right are the 6 different steps of a natural capital accounting work. I'm not going to go into detail because there's no time for that, but just for you to have an idea of the work we did before going into the results. So if you want to know which are the benefits provided by an MPA and you want to apply a natural capital accounting approach, these are the steps to be carried out under this framework. So you first, after selecting the case study area, you identify the natural assets and ecosystem services provided by those natural assets. So we are talking about identifying and mapping seagrass meadows, well, the different habitats, right? And the ecosystem services, the environmental benefits provided by those habitats, fishing, biodiversity, carbon sequestration, recreation and tourism, and so on. So second step, number 2, once you have done that, you need to know which is the extent, the surface covered by each habitat, and the condition, the state of each habitat. Is it in a good state, bad state? You can use different indicators for that reason. Step number 3, then you come to work with the ecosystem services. So you basically quantify biophysically the ecosystem services and put an economic value to those ecosystem services. This is point number 3. So we are talking about the benefits of the natural capital of that area. Then we subtract the point number 4, which are the costs, because managing, as we have seen the previous presentation, managing a marine protected area means investing and carries some costs, such as the surveillance of Posidonia. So you need to subtract the costs of managing a protected area to the benefits that we all get from it. And then finally, we come to the points 5 and 6, which is the natural capital balance sheet. So you get the final, let's say, overview of which is the value of that area. Next slide, please. So going into the results of the project, this is the case study area in this marine reserve in Levante of Mallorca, Spain. On the right hand side, you can see the different habitats. So this was the first step to map and to, let's say, identify the different habitats and the different ecosystem services provided by those habitats. Then we came to quantify ecosystem services. How we did that? Different methods were used we did, let's say, we use GIS work for that, some other models, and so on and so forth. As for the monetary valuation, we use different methods. So there is no one single method for each ecosystem service, as you know. So, for example, for valuing from an economic point of view, the ecosystem service of recreation and tourism, since we knew the number of people or visitors coming to this marine protected area every year, X amount of people, we used a method called travel and cost benefits, where we calculate which is the amount spent by each person each year that comes to this area. The costs included scuba diving activities, whale sightseeing, and others, right? So this is the way, for example, we valued the ecosystem service of recreation. Other services such as fishing, so we used the market value of fishing. We knew the kilograms of fish caught per year, so we just applied the market value. And others, I'm not going to go into detail. Later on, if you have any questions on the methods, I will answer them happily. But yeah, next slide, please. Again, these are just some values, let's say values that one can consider when performing a natural capital accounting exercise. There are different ones, and depending on the ecosystem service in which you focus, you can use ones or others. Again, we can talk about this later. Next slide, please. So, which were the results of the exercise? So here you can see the balance, the natural capital balance sheet of the exercise. So this is the last point of the 6 steps that I showed before. So on the left, you have the different benefits or ecosystem services. There are 8 ecosystem services. So the first one is fishing, Posidonia remains, improvement of water quality, coastal erosion, maintenance of biodiversity, CO2 capture, recreation and tourism, and finally, research and education. Then on the right, you have the value per year of each service in its own unit, kilograms, hectares, people, tons, etc. And then on the right, the second to last column, we have the value in euros per year for each ecosystem service. And the final column on the right is the value over the next 60 years. So the main message of this study was that this marine protected area in the Balearic Sea, in Levant of Mallorca, provides a benefit of 4.3 million euros per year to the society, to companies, to local governments, to everyone. And if we extrapolate or project rather this value to the next 60 years, that goes all the way up to more than 100 million. Next slide, please. So now we come to the communication part. So we are not saying that we are not trying to put, or the goal is not to put an economic value or monetary value to the benefits or to nature, but rather try to speak in the same language as decision and policy makers do, as companies do, in order to enhance conservation of nature, basically. So what we did here, again, which I forgot to mention, we did this work together with Marilles Foundation, Fundación Marilles, CBBA, CBBA, the Balearic Center of Applied Biology, and also with another British consultancy called FTech. So this was one of the first natural capital accounting work applied to a marine protected area in Spain. As I said, the marine reserve natural capital based on our results provides almost 5 million euros every year. And one of the key messages of our result was that for every euro that is invested in this marine protected area, you get back 10 euros. So this is a very powerful message. In order to let everyone know, again, private and public entities, that we need to really conserve and enhance protection and conservation of these and other areas, because the benefits are huge. So if we don't do that, then we all lose in that sense. Next slide, please. So the media cover of the study was quite important. Here you can see a couple of national well-known newsletters and The Guardian, British one, that actually put a voice of the results that we got from this exercise. Again, the idea here was to try to communicate the value and our dependency on this particular marine protected area. And the framework and methodology we used can be applied to any other case study in not only the Mediterranean, but also and at a higher scale. So as we'll see later on, we are, for example, now doing a similar exercise for the whole Balearic Sea together with Fundación Marillas. So this is some ongoing work. But yeah, it's very important for us, the communication part, the last part of the project, and this is what we try to do by speaking with these newsletters. Next one, please. So 3 more slides to go. What are the strengths and the weaknesses of all this? Of course, there are both strengths and weaknesses. So strengths of natural capital accounting, of again, showing the value of ecosystem services and environmental assets. So it's a very, very effective and strong tool for communication and decision making, above all for non-technical audiences or people that are not part of any environmental sector. So if you talk about the benefits they get from what area, then they understand what you mean. So this is a strength of natural capital accounting. Second, traceability of the state of natural resources. So that's very important for decision making. If you know how natural capital changes over time, you can make decisions to improve it. Well, of course, results are showed both in economic and biophysical values. Results are also spatial. So you don't only know how much, but where is the value or where is not the value or the benefits. It allows also to assess future scenarios. So before in a previous slide, I show you the year value of our exercise, but also the projected value for the next 60 years. So you can actually get to know what will be the future benefits that I will get from one particular area if I, let's say, decrease or increase this or that ecosystem service. So this is quite interesting too. Important, we used this United Nations framework, which also provides some solid background to the work. And again, as you can see, the natural capital accounting is a very integrated approach. So here we bring climate change issues, biodiversity issues, economic issues and challenges into one single system or tool. So it's very important, the transversality of the work is quite important. And of course, by knowing the benefits, you can and the losses, you can put in place mitigation measures. Next one. So which are the weaknesses or the challenges here? So as always, data improvement, of course. We have issues with accessing to data. For example, in order to know the kilograms or the number of fish caught per year in that particular place, we did some interviews with 2 local fishermen, and that was quite challenging. So that's just an example. So data improvement is always a challenge, as you all know. Systematic use and application in decision-making processes. So to be able to convince and show the value of this natural capital accounting tool and to improve decision-making, that's a challenge too. Sorry?
No, if you can conclude, please.
Yeah. Just one more slide and I'm done. Social economic data compilation, of course, and the scaling up process. I said that we can apply this to any other scale, and it's true, but it's always a challenge to apply this exercise with a higher, let's say, or larger areas. Next one. This just, as I said before, the current study that we are performing with Fundación Marillas and FTEC in the Balearic Sea. So we are trying to know the value of the marine protected area. And next slide, which is the last one, the 3 take-home messages or recommendations. So will be first one, we need to engage businesses and decision and policy makers in natural capital accounting projects to increase the integration and use of this tool into policy making. Recommendation number 2, we do not have to see economic and monetary evaluation as a selling nature thing, but rather as a way to better communicate, better transmit the value of nature and the importance of nature to policy and decision makers. And recommendation number 3, we need to continue to carry out more and more exercises at local, regional, and national levels in order to shift minds and enhance conservation and sustainable practices. That's all. Next slide if you want. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Marianne, could you please go to the recommendation? So very interesting. I'm very agree with the second recommendation about this the application of this tool, because I think that this tool is very not dangerous, but needs to be handled with very carefully, because the danger is to create a value to be is you know, a price for the nature, but it's not the objective of this of the application of this type of tool, but is I think a relevant tool in order to explain the complexity with general terms, because you know what the value of €1, so you can have a link with this in order to explain the value of the complexity that we manage. And also I'm very agree with the use of the €1 in conservation, €10 in benefit. It is a very key message. You can explain this in a very simple way in order to also to stress the importance of the active conservation, active management for the biodiversity, in order to ensure the persistence of the ecosystem services. So the floor of you for questions.
Yes, I have a question, Julien, Pierre from MedPAN. So first of all, just to say that I totally agree with what you just said, Francesco. I remember this was a point that was raised years ago. We had a conference on the socio-economic benefit of MPAs in Marseille, that indeed, whenever like providing valuation of ecosystems and protection, it can provide very interesting and very powerful communication argument to engage non-technical stakeholders, but should always be accompanied with also reminding about the intangible value of nature. I think it's important. But one thing, one point of interest for us as a network of MPA managers, and we were like coordinating this MPA networks project. You said that the system that you tested in the Balearic is a system that is transferable, that is scalable, that is replicable. So I wanted your point of view on how transferable it is, because, for example, you mentioned the difficulty to access to data. And I remember that when talking with the colleagues from the Marilles Foundation, also from Portofino MPA, because they did in the same project, the natural capital accounting, they indeed reminded that it is a very demanding participatory approach that requires good conditions of dialogue with the local stakeholders to access the data. That is enough trust to have the data. And that also, of course, is a must to have, well, to outsource the research work to, well, a natural capital accountant, like you have an accountant for natural, like not for natural accounting, but for financial accounting. But so as my question, because it's a point of interest for us, if we want to support for more MPAs to do to perform such natural accounting exercise, what would be your recommendations?
Mm-hmm. So this can be applied at any scale. So just to give you an example, the natural capital accounting under the United Nations framework has been applied at a country level. Just an example, country level, and we perform it in a very small area, few hectares. So it can be applied anywhere. As for the data, it can be as demanding or not as you want. And you can, let's say, complicate your life as much as you want. Just as an example, if you want to have a robust and solid application or exercise, ideally, you will carry out, let's say, interviews with local stakeholders and people to get to know what is the value that they will put, for example, to one or other service. Or you will perform workshops with local stakeholders. But as we did for some services and as we have done in other projects, you can just use, for example, data from previous projects or published public data, and you don't need to do any of those demanding or work demanding exercises. So again, because there is no one unique method for biophysical and economic valuation for each service, you can use any type of method. So natural capital accounting is the framework, is the system, is the links between the steps that I showed before, the 6 steps. But the methods, you know, it can be as demanding or not as you want. If you have 2-3 months to carry out a work, you better use data from other projects or, you know, publish papers. If you have some, you know, money and time to do it, then it's recommendable to, you know, to get to know what local people think, how local people value the benefits. Of course, as we did in this project, again, for example, for valuing the fishing service, the Center of Balearic Applied Biology, they carried out some interviews, right? They asked for data to local fishermen because we had a time for that. But again, if you want to apply this to a country level or to the whole Mediterranean, as we are doing right now, for example, with no time, then you can just use published data if you manage to find it. So again, this is quite flexible, and the replicability and scalability is fine. So yeah.
Any question from the floor?
Hi, I'm Ata, speaker from Association Sunze. I have a question because I did my master on this. I did my master on this subject, and I didn't get if you included also indirect non-use values in the study. I didn't get that indirect use, and if you did, what challenges did you find on the way? Because I found them quite more challenging than use values when you have a market value for something, and time consuming when you think of the methodology that you have to use. So I'm interested in this part. Thank you.
Yeah, very, very good question. We did not include any indirect or non-direct method, and for that reason, because the time framework of the project was quite small, we avoid including services that require those kind of methods. So those are most cultural services, for example, such as the inner or intrinsic value of nature and others, right? So we try to use biophysical values, and with methods such as market price, travel and cost methods, and transfer benefits, which means basically you get data from you take data from other papers, interviews. But the indirect values of services, we, again, because we didn't have time to perform, for example, interviews to perform a contingent valuation method, for example. So we avoided that. But I completely agree with you that this is quite time consuming, and sometimes in the consultancy world you don't have the time to carry out these projects. So yeah, we had to adapt to those conditions. But again, yeah, that's a challenge, and ideally, slowly we need to go into, let's say, harmonizing methods and being able to integrate those non-direct or indirect methods into this kind of exercises. Yeah.
Hello, Julian. This is Jorge Moreno from Bali. You hear? Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
From Balearic Islands. I'm colleague of Marilles, of Anuel, and Tony Font, and all this that I know that they were involved in this.
Yep.
Well, first, congratulations, because I think it's a very challenging study, and it's something that is giving new vision and new lights that were there, but nobody started to do it in a place. So it was a very great job. But I have a question or something to suggest, and it's the first part of the work is to evaluate the capital. Yes, so you take how much fish do you take, how much excursion of diving are. So and then you take an amount of money, a benefit that is very interesting, and this is what I say, fantastic. But what I don't see is that when you made the relation to the benefit of 1 to 10 euros invested, if you use and I think that is what you did, if it's not, tell me, if what you use the budget that is it's spent by the administration that manages the natural reserve to the activities, for example, for enforcing, for the boats, for the stuff, I think that you should use not the real budget, but the optimal budget that you should evaluate, which will be the necessary budget to do that, not the real budget. Why? Because what happens if now in this new legislation the political decide that instead of 2 boats he will put only 1? The fish will be the same that you can, but the amount will be the less. So in this case, you cut the surveillance, you cut the number of boats, and then is the half of the budget. So then the percentage is 1 to 20, and it will be the opposite. If politicians say, okay, let's put more boats for surveillance, they put 4 boats more, 4 times more. So that means that the relation is 1 to 2.5. So I think that you should evaluate what is necessary really for what should be optimal or what should be necessary to manage properly and to keep these objectives, to keep especially the surveillance and the enforcement for controlling the fishing activity, that will help the fishermen to do the activity without any poaching or something like this. So this is my suggestion that it will be better, because it's very brave to say this relation 110, and you should have to say some number. This number has been very well understood in the Balearic society, but I think like public manager, that I know that I have this budget today, but maybe next year I have the half, and that doesn't mean that the relationship is double effective. It will be less. So I suggest that in may be good to do it with a budget that you estimate necessary to do this conservation or these objectives that you are evaluating.
That's super interesting question that, to be honest, I didn't think about. So the optimal, of course, I completely agree that if the budget for managing the protected area halves, then that will be a 1 to 20, right? But again, what is the optimal? Who says what is the optimal investment needed to manage a protected area? Is it not represented by the budget, the national budget or the regional budget? That actually represents the amount that you need to properly manage and efficiently manage a protected area for the good of everyone. Unless, of course, you carry out, I mean, for me, that's an indicator, really. Of course, you can have the budget for non-environmental reasons. Then this is not optimal, of course. I guess the optimal will be that if you will have all the money of the world, how much you will put into managing, into costs, into marine protected area management in order to maintain the benefits, right? So I guess that will be the optimal. But again, the reason why we used the current budget was because it was perhaps the closest indicator to reality, to what is the actual cost of managing. But I completely agree with you that we need to avoid being that volatile in case, for example, as you said, that if they have the budget, then the cost of managing the protected area is half. So that it shouldn't be like this. So this is a very good point. I take note of it. And again, I raise the message of, but then what is optimal? What is the optimal money you need to invest to properly manage, efficiently manage a protected area, which is a difficult, I guess, a challenging work. But yeah, thanks for the note.
I agree with what you said, that it's and you have to give a number, and I think that you choose the number available, and this is what you have to do, and I think that the results are very good. But what you said, if I have all the money in the world, how much will I put? Because I wouldn't put all. I would put also money for other things, for hospitals or things like this. So, I mean, maybe you can do this study with the managers, with the not with the politicians. So and has to make that an evaluation. That could be.
Yeah. Excuse me. We can continue during the final discussion about the.
Yeah. I've got a question. You said that it was a good tool to communicate with non-technical people, but it seems to me that the tool is quite technical. So I wonder, how do you do to communicate not only to administration or manager, but just general public maybe? And I have a difficulty to, when you speak about the number of fishes or the number of people, well, it's quite maybe easy to have an economic benefit, but to translate benefits on biodiversity into monetary is not that easy to understand. So how the general public, not maybe the general public, but the stakeholders, how do they react to this method?
Yeah, so thank you for bringing that up. So the way the tool itself, it's not just for you to have an idea, it's an Excel spreadsheet for now. So this is the actual tool where we apply the framework from the United Nations. It's not that complicated. It's basically what you saw in the screen, and for each ecosystem service you have the data, the biophysical and economic data that you use. So we adapt the results depending on the audience, of course. If you are talking with someone that comes from, politics or decision making, maybe they are not that much interested in the methods, but results and the objective and application. If you talk to scientists, maybe you want to go into the methods and the how. So it's quite adaptable, and you can show parts depending on the audience. And as for the last question, yes, I completely agree that quantifying and valuing some services is challenging and even not ethically, bad, but some people, can think that, so how do you measure the value of biodiversity? The value is everything, right? But so the way we did it in this exercise, again, because we didn't have as much time as we would have liked. So for example, just from the top of my head, the ecosystem service of, I think the coastal erosion control. So how Posidonia protects the coastal. So we used the data from one other project, from one scientific paper, which calculated the number of, let's say, the value, how to say this, so how much you save, or how much in that area was saved in terms of flooding, thanks to Posidonia, which avoids erosion of sediments. So we use directly that value. So they gave us the tons per hectare of sediments avoided and the value. So we didn't have the time to carry out our own exercise, so we used that value from another Mediterranean, or actually a couple of them, sites. As for biodiversity,
excuse me, we need to close.
Yes.
We can postpone the continuation
Sure.
during the last part of the discussion. We need to go very quickly to the next presentation. Invasive alien species management with the market-based. Thank you very much.
thank you.
I'm just in a hurry.
Yeah, that's fine.
Invasive alien species management with a market-based approach, communication and outreach activities on the Mediterranean coast of Turkey with Mrs. Funda Koch. Please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, I know, because I need to move. I can't stay still. Yeah.
To take our attention. Thank you.
Yeah, okay. So my presentation is about how we use the bad guys to communicate the impact of MPAs, the value of MPAs with a wide audience. I'm going to give you a general overview of who we are. I'm from Mediterranean Conservation Society in Turkey. We're working to conserve Mediterranean ecosystems since 2012. We started in Gökova Bay. And now we're replicating the success in managing Gökova Bay in other areas. We're developing projects based on science and tradition. So it means that we're using scientific data and also always considering people dimension. We're supporting the government to designate the MPAs, and then we're supporting them to manage and do active enforcement there. We started with 4 people in 2012, and now we are almost 30 people, full-time staff, so we're growing. Our approach is like safeguarding habitats and designation of MPAs, improving fisheries monitoring, and also trying to establish some nature positive enterprises just to make some sustainable financing for our conservation efforts. And also we're building partnerships, and we're using the adaptive co-management approach in all of our projects. So this is a general brief of what we're doing. We're monitoring the seawater temperature. We're working with the fisheries cooperatives in the areas we're working in, with 4 fisheries cooperatives in landing and revenue data. We're collecting them to communicate effectively. We're doing enforcement about tackling IUU fishing activities and doing active restoration with underwater cleanup, and also the invasive species systematic removal. And also we're using we're doing some testing interventions that I'm not gonna go into details now because I know that I have 15 minutes. So the area that we're working currently, we're working in 2 special environmental protected areas and 12 no fishing zones, no take zones. We have active engagement with 14 fisheries cooperatives. Especially we started to engage with those cooperatives with our invasive alien species valorization program. We're doing the communication and outreach in 5 special environmental protected areas. I mean in person, physically, but also we are doing our communication activities in Turkey in general. Why we need to manage these non-native species, because they had a big pressure on native species and native habitats. The main vector was Suez Canal, and the AKD Mediterranean Conservation Society has a previous working with another invasive species, Randall's sea bream, in 2015. So we started to replicate this project because we had new bad guys recently, and one of them, the primary threat was coming from lionfish. You can see the guys we're dealing with at the moment in our areas. I think some of them are really common with other countries here, especially with lionfish. It's coming towards north, and there are some projections that it can be really worse, especially with those with lionfish, because it doesn't have a predator. I mean, it has predator, but in our areas, it doesn't have a predator, so it's quite dangerous and it's invading the areas. What we did to valorize these species, first of all, I think most of you know about the things about lionfish, but lionfish has its spines, it's venomous, and if it stings, it has bad effects on human as well. So it hasn't got a predator in Mediterranean area. There is some research around that, common octopus or some groupers or some sharks are eating that, and Fistularia commercial, the cornet fish is eating that as well. But in our areas, they not get used to that, so they can easily occupy the areas. To valorize these species, because it's edible and it's a really delicious species, by the way, we used the success in Caribbean and Belize examples, and we started to use a market-based approach to market lionfish and other species, but our flagship species turns out to be the lionfish because it's really catchy for the people as well. So we did the surveys with the fishers, but there were some challenges around the fishers because they had to sacrifice their fishing gear because these lionfish were living in rocky reef areas. I'm trying not to get into really too much details. If you'll have any questions about that, I can happily tell you in the break. It was hard to change the behavior of people, especially when people are get used to consume, for example, the sea bream and sea bass generally, especially in Turkey. Even Turkey is surrounded with the sea. We're not really happy consumers of seafood. That was another challenge when we were valorizing the species. So behavior change is not easy and fast. So our objective was to reach out fishers, consumers, and businesses like the restaurants, hotels, retail markets, universities, and other NGOs to remove the barriers to recovery. The first thing we did is to do a survey. We had three audiences here. There were consumers, I mean, normal people in the street, and restaurants, and the fishers, the small-scale fishers. We asked if they are targeting these species to the fishers, if they will serve these species in the restaurants, and to consumers if they've ever consumed that, or if they would consume that if it is readily available. So that makes us using their choices. We had other questions in the surveys about their communication channels. For example, the consumers were using Instagram and Facebook, so we had other means to, we will know how to communicate this to the people. So, for example, the fishers were saying that they're just using Facebook, or they're just asking their friends about the news, things like that. And then we had concluded that most of the consumers are using Instagram. Then we opened an Instagram account, and the name of the account was first the invasives. Then we changed that to new fishes, because invasives was not a really great communication tool, because it was a bit negative. Then we said new instead of invasive. So we reached 23 fishing cooperatives, actively engaged with 14 of them in terms of data collection, cash benefits, and they were also contributing to research about the lending and revenue from these invasives. But their best interest was in cash benefits, of course. And then we reached 224 direct beneficiaries. When I say beneficiaries, it means that the small-scale fishers. And when you consider them with their families, it's around 560 people. We had sales agreements with cooperatives, and we sold we purchased 5 tons of lionfish in a year. Now we are, people are getting served in 21 repeat restaurants. We reached out more restaurants than this, but it was the ones that we engaged with. At least 37 restaurants ordered at least once. And now we are in 21 repeat restaurants. And we use 600 kilograms in events, tasting events. So we extensively worked on communication, because it was all about communication with this project, because they were new species. Nobody knew that. Even the fishers didn't know that. They were being discarded. Restaurants didn't serve that, and the consumers didn't know what to do with them. And for example, for lionfish, they thought that they are poisonous, not venomous at all. So they thought that it was dangerous to consume. So we had other different audiences. We had fishers at some point. We had businesses and normal people like consumers. We used seminars, new fish seminars, and we had like 5 seminars in different areas. 14 tasting and promotion events, and you can see some figures there. I don't want to pronounce them, but we reached a lot of people in a year. For example, 8,421 people in person in our tasting events and festivals and seminars. And also we produced some videos about using the recipes, using these invasive species. And also we went beyond project areas and also the MPAs, communicating especially the importance of MPAs as well, not just consumption of new invasive species, but the importance of marine protected areas, because also we found out that 15% we are using biomass, visual census biomass research in marine protected areas. In no fishing zones, it is 15% less than comparing to out of no fishing zones invasive species presence, which was really important, and we communicated that too. And also we find out that people are trying to do interviews, calling us to, give some interviews at TV, radio, podcasts and things like that, just because they know us from this project, from New Invasive Species Project. So these are the recommendations. I hope it is 15 minutes. Yeah, great. Okay. Okay. So designation of surveys are really beneficial because first you need to know with whom you're going to communicate, for whom you're going to deliver the message. So those behavior change surveys helped us a lot. and the channels they're using, the communication channels, what channels are we going to use, and what message would they be happy to hear. By the way, in that surveys, we were asking about their how they were concerned about the health of the oceans. So there was another thing about their, willingness to pay, for example, for an invasive species when comparing to a native one. The identification of the audience and giving some different messages to this designation of the messages is another important key thing that we learned on the way. For example, for the tasting events, we were using some other concepts, for example, like new fish. But when we had other audiences like universities, we were using the Latin names of the fish species. So it was easier for us to give the message in a more technical way. And of course, diversification of target groups is really key when communicating the values of an MPA, because we should reach everyone and with a wider audience as much as we can.
Thank you very much. Very good. Just one word. So this is another important aspect of the communication for us, how to communicate the change. Because you can have a positive attitude, you can have also a negative attitude, but you need to communicate about the change in our environment. And this is one example when you try to have a positive attitude in order to create, I think, first a benefit for the local fishermen. So, any question? Maybe you can use this one, please.
Thank you. It's not a question. It's something I want to mention because we had a similar actions in Cyprus.
Excuse me, if it is not a direct question, if we can use in the final part of the discussion in order to have also this type of contribution, personal experience, but if only is direct, a question direct to this presentation, please. I will remember, don't worry. Right.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a short comment, we can maybe later discuss more about it, but I found very interesting how do you actually use this example for promoting marine protected areas. So a very particular problem that there is in general, not only in the marine protected areas, but then you communicate the importance of the marine protected areas. So what do you do? How do you connect these two things? You say that the marine protected areas, they had less invasives, in percentage. Okay.
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, exactly that point. We focused on the impact of marine protected areas, advocating that when we did the biomass visual census, we had the concrete results that marine protected areas works somehow. And when we conduct the even tasting events, when people are coming approaching us, we were giving the message that if we protect, of course, it's not related to just protection, because the main vector, for example, the Suez Canal, right? And also there are a lot of effects of climate change as well, the marine trade, and it's quite a complex thing. But if we have more resilient areas with the impact of marine protection, it would be more robust. It would be and we have the concrete results of that. So yeah, that's the thing that the relation is that. And also another aspect about small-scale fishers, who are generally are residents of neighboring marine protected areas. You know, with the overexploitation of fish and IUU activities, the native species are in decline. And also it has another effect on small-scale fisheries income. They're getting vulnerable every day. And with this project, we're using a pragmatic way to also uplifting the livelihoods of small-scale fishers, which is an important cultural aspect of the places that we're working in. So I can relate with those two things.
Yeah, I wanted to say it's a very good case, because you really made a marketing approach for the launching of new products with market studies and communication campaign. So my question is about the communication campaign. Did you start with the general public to communicate on this basis, or did you start with the professional, the rest? And how did you deal with the balance between these two publics? I heard that you worked on the networks, social networks, and for the professional, did you work also on the networks or only on personal approaches? How did you do?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Yeah, we worked with, we started with working in local communities. Then we upscaled the communication strategy. We went beyond our project areas. But at the same time, it was kind of a lean management, because when we were communicating that with local people, we were also working on producing videos, short videos showing recipes, or and then when we have success with some restaurants, when some restaurants had that in there, had the invasive specialty lionfish in their menus, or when they started to serve that, we also used them. We produced some videos from the restaurant owners or chefs, celebrity chefs, to communicate that with the general audience, like the consumers. No, we didn't, no. But that's a great idea. We can use them. Yeah.
I think that we can go on coffee break in order to. Yeah, we need to recover 50 minutes of extra delay, so we need to have a coffee break only 50 minutes, please. And we have a person with a whistle outside. No? Okay. Okay. No, I don't. I'm not able. I'm not there. No, I don't.
Just to mention that, unlike what I was almost promising when we started the session, there is no chance that we can postpone the bus. So we will need to stop the session as was planned initially at 5:30. So this is why maybe, because the bus will start for the gala dinner at 6 sharp. So which means that we should be back here in, I don't know, 15 minutes, if that's okay for you. If it's enough for a coffee. And okay, thank you.
Okay, we are returning in the session. So we have the last presentation from Kayla Williams and Lauren Wenzel, is on communicating to varying stakeholders the contribution of USA national marine sanctuaries to marine resources protection through a management effectiveness framework. Only for the title, the time is expired. So the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Great. So hello, everyone. I'm Kayla Williams. I am the Sea Grant or Knaus Fellow with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, or NOAA, within the MPA Center, which is housed within the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries. And we do have Lauren Wenzel on the line. She's the director of the MPA Center. She will not be presenting with me today, but she will be online and available with me for the Q&A afterward. So I'm really excited to be here with you all today. And next slide, please. So U.S. sanctuaries, just a little bit of background. U.S. sanctuaries are underwater parks in the U.S. that are designated by the Secretary of Commerce, which is delegated then to NOAA to protect marine and Great Lakes waters. So the National Marine Sanctuaries Program consists of the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, which serves as the trustee to these underwater parks for management of these sanctuaries within the U.S. So the National Marine Sanctuary Program is comprised of the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries plus 15 national marine sanctuaries and 2 marine national monuments. So sanctuaries, and this is a picture of the sanctuary system here in the middle. Sanctuaries are managed by NOAA and the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries, but they're also sometimes co-managed with states and even tribes. So there are many different definitions of management effectiveness for sanctuaries and for marine protected areas. But the definition that we are working with for this project is a draft definition that is, are sanctuaries achieving their goals and objectives, basically. And the Office of National Marine Sanctuaries has been concerned with management effectiveness for quite a few years. So we developed this project and this presentation to develop guidance on management effectiveness for ONMS. Next slide, please. So the challenge we're addressing with this guidance is measuring, evaluating, and communicating management effectiveness within our sanctuary system. So we want to give informed guidance on how to better measure, evaluate, and communicate management effectiveness for national marine sanctuaries. So there are some current tools that we have to track and communicate management effectiveness now. To the left and in the middle, you'll see a picture of our condition reports. So these are a set of indicator questions to assess the status and trends of sanctuary resources. We also, to the right, you can see a picture of our management plans, which are a series of action plans that lay out strategies for research, management, and education that will be used to protect resources within sanctuaries. Both the condition reports and management plans are updated periodically around every 5 years for the management plans. But there is a need for more information on the degree to which management actions are achieving conservation outcomes. In other words, there is a need for within the sanctuary system to draw a connection between our management plans and our condition reports. Next slide, please. So to address this, the action being implemented is the development of a guidance document for how ONMS has been and can better address management effectiveness across our sanctuary system. So the methods that we use to develop this guidance are first case studies. So these case studies involved interviews with sanctuary staff from 4 sanctuaries that are listed here on the slide. So the first is Stellwagen Bank, which is in the northeast area of the United States. Channel Islands National Marine Sanctuaries, which is on the West Coast in California. Florida Keys, which is in the Southeast in Florida. And Hawaiian Islands Humpback Whale National Marine Sanctuary, which is in Hawaii and the Pacific Islands. So the case studies involved interviews with staff from these 4 sanctuaries, as well as an internal ONMS virtual management effectiveness workshop that has yet to be held and will be held in mid-November. So the objective of this workshop is to share experiences and knowledge about management effectiveness and to discuss topics for program-wide guidance on management effectiveness, this guidance that we will be developing in early 2023. As for the case study interviews with sanctuaries, during these interviews, we gathered information such as what have been the effective management, science, and education actions that sanctuaries have taken since their designation. How are the outcomes of these actions measured? So in other words, how do we know that this works? And what are the challenges in achieving and communicating these outcomes to the public and to various stakeholders? Next slide, please. So for some preliminary results, this guidance is still in development, but we are seeing some patterns in what we're hearing from case study sanctuaries. So as far as what we've heard that the National Marine Sanctuary System does well, we do well at being a federal agency that prioritizes all three: science, resource protection, and education within one single organization, which in the US is pretty rare for one organization to focus on all three of those aspects of conservation. We are also known as a very good community organizer. So we are promoting stewardship, sanctuaries work with communities to conduct citizen science. We ask for input on proposed management. We develop volunteer and ambassador programs to have members of the public be able to reach out to their own communities to share the importance of sanctuaries and the importance of using these areas to manage resources and to protect resources. We're also great at catalyzing new conservation efforts. So for conservation issues that sanctuaries don't take direct authority over in practice, such as managing commercial fisheries, we go directly to the agencies that do have that authority with science-based proposals for new management efforts that they implement on our behalf. So as far as what we've identified as some of the major system-wide challenges, the first is there is a difficulty in the system in determining what actually counts as being effective. So many of the goals and objectives or strategies that are spelled out in our management plans, they will take a long time to fully achieve. So there is some difficulty in determining, does progress toward achieving these goals, does that count as effectiveness, or is it only when those goals are fully actualized? There's also difficulty in measuring or effectively determining whether our partnerships are effective and whether we can consider work that we do with partners as effective sanctuary work if we're doing it alongside someone else, and how we can effectively maximize those partnerships to actually achieve sanctuary goals. So there's also some difficulty in an influence of external oceanic and atmospheric factors, such as climate change, which is obviously the big one. There are instances where there's worry that sanctuaries can do all of this, restoration. We can work, with these internal and external partners for management. We can do all of this science, but if something, as large and as complicated as climate change is hanging over our heads, the impacts of climate change can quickly wipe out important habitats, relatively quickly, then are we just trying to dig ourselves out of a hole that is sort of never ending with climate change? And can we truly be effective when there's this outside influence of things like climate change, large scale water quality issues, external factors such as that? And then finally, there's a difficulty in addressing management effectiveness on multiple scales. So as I mentioned before, we have our condition reports. Those address the status and trends of the overall sanctuary, but they don't do as well accounting for local variances in resource conditions, such as localized water quality issues versus sanctuary-wide water quality issues. And next slide, please. So this is a case study to show an example of how, for the communications piece, how we communicate our effectiveness. So this is Stellwagen Bank's corporate responsibility program. So Stellwagen is one of our U.S. National Marine Sanctuaries in the Northeast of the U.S. and one of the sanctuaries that I worked with for the case studies. So just starting with some context, in the U.S., there are two ways that we protect whales from vessel strikes, and that is separating ships from whales and slowing ships. So to separate ships and whales, the Stellwagen Sanctuary worked with various partners that are listed here to the right to adjust the Boston traffic separation scheme to reduce vessel strike risk to North Atlantic right whales. And you can see on the left, here's a map of that adjustment of the TSS. So the solid line is where the old TSS was located, and the dotted line is showing that it was shifted to the north into lower concentrations of right whales. And next slide. To slow vessels down, NOAA implemented these seasonal management areas as well, or SMAs, along the east coast of the US. Now, in these SMAs, they require ships that are 65 feet or larger to slow down to 10 knots, while in the SMA areas at certain times of the year when right whales are most present. So the SMAs are part of NOAA's larger effort called the NOAA Ship Strike Rule, that has reduced risk of lethal strikes to right whales by 80 to 90%. Next slide. So to encourage compliance with these SMAs, Stellwagen has developed a corporate responsibility program that uses positive reinforcement to encourage shipping companies to adhere to these speed restrictions within the SMA regions. So as part of this effort, the US Coast Guard actually tracks the speed of ships, and Stellwagen uses that data to then generate report cards on compliance that are sent to shipping companies. And on the right, so on the left, you can see an example of what these report cards look like that are sent to these shipping companies. So they have information such as the vessel name, the type of vessel. Previous slide, please. Thank you. Number of transits, the distance, and how the percentage of compliance, as well as their speed and overall compliance. So at the bottom, I know it's a little hard to see, but this bar chart at the bottom is basically illustrating for different months out of the year. It's illustrating out of the distance that these ships traveled, what speed are they traveling at different distances. So red is over 11 knots, which would be not in compliance with the SMAs. Yellow would be between 10 and 11 knots, which is somewhere in the middle, not compliant, but not as bad as, going over 11 knots. And then green would be 10 knot or less than 10 knots, which would be in compliance with the SMAs. So as you can see, there is a lot for this specific vessel. At the bottom, we'll be able to show that this vessel in particular has been in compliance with the seasonal management areas. Next slide, please. So, so some of these results further, in terms of the effectiveness of this corporate responsibility program, the pie charts that you see here show that at the bottom in 2015, overall, of all the ships participating in the program, 72% received a grade of an A or an A+ for compliance with seasonal management areas. And that actually increased in 2016 to about 83%. And more recently in 2018, we saw that overall there was a 75% of shipping companies that participate in the program received an A or an A+ rating. And on the right, this chart just breaks it down by number and shows that the number of vessels that received each grade level in 2015 and 2016. Next slide. So this is just showing you some of the products that we use to communicate to these shipping companies about the importance of slowing down their ships and the importance of protecting right whales. So companies that receive an A or an A+, they get a formal letter of congratulations and a certificate showing their commitment to protecting whales by slowing down. So in the middle, you can see this is what the corporate responsibility certificate looks like at I believe at the top left, even though it's small to see, that's the letter that we send to the highest highest compliant shipping companies. Whether you are in that sort of top spot or not, all shipping companies in the program receive information on our free whale alert app. So that was an app that was also developed by Stellwagen with partners, and is another communication tool that gives real-time updates for mariners on the presence of whales in the area, as well as an overlap with the location of seasonal management areas, so that these mariners can see when whales are present within the seasonal management areas, and when they need to slow down, as well as outside of the seasonal management areas, if there are what we call dynamic management areas. Those change based on whether we see 3 or more right whales in a specific area. Then the app will be able to notify you of that as well. Next slide, please. So in terms of communicating this program to the public, so the public is notified of these efforts through press releases via news articles. So in addition to this program being voluntary, the positive press is extremely valuable to these mariners and to these shipping companies, and it positively affects their bottom line.
Excuse me, 2
so,
minutes.
Oh, 2 minutes, okay, got it. Next slide, please. So some of the lessons learned with the Stellwagen case study: voluntary methods, such as the corporate responsibility program, have been effective in slowing ship speeds in combination with mandatory methods such as the SMAs. This approach has also been adopted on the West Coast. Channel Islands has a program called Protecting Blue Whales and Blue Skies that is also a voluntary program to slow ships and reduce air pollution. Strong communication and positive reinforcement has been a key element of this approach. And there's an importance of continuing to track progress and educate ship companies on these efforts. Next slide. So for our recommendations, these are also in prep. They are drafts right now as we continue to develop the framework. But from what we have learned so far during the case studies, our first recommendation is that we need a system-wide accepted definition of what management effectiveness actually means to ONMS. So that definition can be communicated in plain language to non-technical stakeholders. There's also a question of whether we need a system-wide set of management effectiveness indicators. As far as our second recommendation, we recommend adopting localized measures to account for varying resource statuses and trends in different areas, to account for localized differences in large-scale MPAs. And then finally, management plans and other public-facing documents going forward should explicitly highlight management actions and the degree to which they were successful. And we could also utilize more publicly accessible online tools such as web-based condition reports. Next slide. So that's all I have, but before I end, I want to acknowledge and thank all of the sanctuaries that participated in case studies with me and provided a lot of useful information, and especially want to acknowledge and thank Stellwagen Bank National Marine Sanctuary for providing me with some of this data for their corporate responsibility program. And that is all I have. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Just to stress the importance to adopt also a voluntary approach in order to improve the engagement of relevant stakeholders. Is a very key message to be spreaded about this. Any questions?
I have a question about what you said about the white whales. Could you say again, what was the target about the size of the vessels? And also, how did you communicate to these vessels? Was direct approach or just a general approach with media?
So as far as the size question, I couldn't hear the question very well, but vessels 65 feet and over are required to comply with the seasonal management areas. So if that answers the first question. And then as far as communicating with these shipping companies, I know that Stellwagen, they do a lot of direct communication. They do communicate directly with these shipping companies, and they also have a presence at things like boating conventions and events such as that. So I know that there is some direct communication going on, and as well as promoting at these conferences, and with this direct communication, there's promotion of things like the Whale Alert app as well, in addition to the corporate responsibility program.
Thank you. A question? Okay. I'm just to understood better. This is, you presented a case study of a more elaborated communication plan about sanctuaries. So this is only one aspect, but in the other sanctuaries you applied different specific action. So you presented us as only one part of this, I think.
Right. So are you referring to the case studies that we? Okay. Yes. So yes, this is just one aspect. So we wanted to highlight Stellwagen and the program because it's a great example of how the voluntary program has actually been effective, and there's data that shows that, but then also communicating that information to the public and to these stakeholders. But yes, we did also, like I mentioned, conduct case study interviews with other sanctuaries, and they also have, some of them have similar programs. Like I mentioned, Channel Islands, they're protecting blue whales and blue skies. That also has, it's a voluntary program to slow vessels down, to protect whales and also to reduce pollution. That has similar data that shows the effectiveness of the program. And they use some of the similar communication methods, showing up to boaters conferences and other venues to communicate about the program. So yes, there are other examples that we just didn't have time to highlight.
Thank you very much, because you give us a specific view coming from a large scale approach, because we are a manager of more of us of small scale MPAs, and so this is also an approach for very wide areas and for I don't know, communities that are not 1,000 of people, because I think that in some of the sanctuaries you have also indigenous peoples with ethnic issues. So it's in, I think in Hawaiian Highland there is also a specific approach for the local indigenous communities. So it's very important for us to have also this approach and this view, because it's not common for us as Med people. Okay, thank you very much. Oh, there is a question, please.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Very interesting to know about the corporate responsibility program. I wanted to know a bit more about these certificates that you give to the companies. No, it's like a level of you put A+ on different. Do the companies compete actually to that for that? Like they really want to get to the best so they can maybe have more tourists. Is there a relation between that? Because I think it's something relevant, no? So they get a certificate must be important also for them, no? To promote their company.
Yes. So I am not going to speak for the Stellwagen Sanctuary, but in my conversations that I've had with some of the staff, shipping companies do vie for sort of that top grade. That is something that they strive for, and I believe that there is some friendly competition between them. But yes, it definitely, they vie for the sort of the top grades, the ones that are in the program, because it does positively affect, like I mentioned, their bottom line and the public perception. One is really important to them, but also the fact that we're using, like I said, positive reinforcement instead of, it sort of shifts the narrative instead of, sort of blaming the, the shipping companies as sort of, instead of labeling them as the bad guys, it's really, instead highlighting that they are actively trying to protect whales in any way that they can. So yes, they definitely value the grades that they receive.
Okay, thank you very much. Now I think that we can go to the general discussion. I ask, okay, good. But you are leaving us, or you remain for the general discussion only 40 minutes? In order. I don't know. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Okay. So we can go to the answers, to the questions, because the answers now. I'm more. I am the end. Okay. Okay. The answer. We have the answers. Excuse us. Yeah. Okay, 00 is also now the time is 5:00, so we have only 30 minutes, 26 minutes to have a discussion. We prepare some question in order to, but first, when we have this technical, I have a commitment with a person, so I just want to give the word to our friend that I brutally interrupted, and I'm a very bad person, but I
didn't take it so personally, don't worry, it's okay.
Okay.
So, okay, hello everyone, I am Yorgos Payaras from the Department of Fisheries and Marine Research in Cyprus. I would like to take us back to alien species, especially to the lionfish story, which is a nice example what we can do or what we cannot do about an alien species which seems to be very aggressive, very dominant, without, as it was mentioned before, without predators and enemies, and with very strong fecundity, etc. In Cyprus, we ran a project called the Lion Med, which ended last year. And we have tried to do Cyprus, let's say that as it is the most east-south end of EU, has taken quite a big project from European Union to try to deal with this species. We thought that we could try to find ways to compact this fish, to increase our capacity, to reduce its numbers, to do removals in MPAs, to do things with the market. It was quite a demanding project. So we had many partners from Cyprus, the University of Cyprus, my department, other partners. So we have done quite a lot of activities, and I can say that it is extremely difficult to say that we have managed to reach some results which make us, let's say, happy that we have reached some points. I mean, we organized groups of people to remove lionfish from MPAs, where targeted groups of people like scuba divers had used to go there because we even had cases where people get stung from lionfish. So we had some kind of responsibility to have safe dive sites. The increase in MPAs was amazing. It was out of control, despite the removal teams that we had around the island. We have tried, as Funda explained, to make awareness among the public, among fishermen, among civilians, among restaurants, that we have a species which is really delicious, is really manageable if you know how to treat it, how to clean the fish. It's tasty. You can have so many recipes. We have reached restaurants that they deal with, let's say, luxury seafood. The problem was that we didn't have enough quantities of fish to, let's say, to deliver to the market. We have created a kind of demand, and we weren't able to correspond to this demand. So another problem that was mentioned before that we also identified was that it's very difficult to change people's perception about different food, about trying a new fish, even if it's easy to catch, quite easy to prepare, and delicious. It takes time. People are very reluctant. So as a conclusion, I would say that we cannot have high expectations with a dominant fish like this one. Maybe we can think of actions how we can keep the number of lionfish or potentially other species in low numbers within the protected areas where we do have visitation, because we want to have safe MPAs for visitors. And this is a potential danger, because you can get stung very easily from a lionfish because they are so slow. They have a very similar behavior like a scorpion, even more lazy. So yeah, I just wanted to share our experience with you. Thank you.
Thank you very much. No,
yes, maybe we could share with you some question about the MPA values. It would be interesting to know what are for you the MPA values that the MPA manager should communicate on. Do you have any idea about that? Please. Maybe Francesco.
No, maybe also. Thank you. I need to take the floor. Yes. No, maybe it's important also to know how you approach when you need to communicate about the complexity, because sometimes you have the danger to simplify too much an issue or a problem or a threat in order to be understandable by the local stakeholders. So we are also interested to, if you are able to share with us your experience in a specific, as our friend made about the indigenous species, because you don't have sometimes maybe is a success story in Turkey is not a success story in Cyprus. I think so, only for example, because maybe the context is different. So you can apply the same approach, but you don't have the same results. And sometimes you have also can be the negative feedback coming from this approach. So how you manage this difficulty and this complexity in the communication, because it's part we saw during this afternoon, is part of our work.
Julien Tavernier, Parc National des Calanques, France. Je vais parler en français. It was too much English this afternoon, so I respect you.
No, I only words in French. It is water. No?
Ouais.
Water.
L'eau.
Ho.
L'eau.
Ho. Okay. It's the only word.
Donc, je travaille au Parc National des Calanques en France et je m'occupe des activités nautiques. Nous, on a un exemple de choses qu'on a lancées avec une communauté spéciale qui est les skippers de bateaux. On a un encadrement des activités nautiques qui existent sur le parc. Et donc, on a mis en place une formation avec tous les skippers autorisés à travailler sur notre aire marine protégée. Et c'est vrai que le contact direct a permis de créer une relation qui va bien au-delà des 2 jours de formation obligatoire qu'ils ont à faire sur le parc, où on leur amène toutes les connaissances de la lecture de paysages, des discussions sur les espèces, quelle communication ils peuvent avoir vis-à-vis de leur public. En fait, on leur donne un rôle dans la MP. Et plutôt que de leur dire « vous êtes un problème », on leur dit « vous êtes une partie de la solution sur ce problème-là dans la MP. Vous avez votre rôle à jouer. Et quel rôle on peut vous donner dans la gestion de cette aire marine protégée ?» Et à la fin de la formation, ce qu'ils expriment généralement, c'est un sentiment de fierté parce qu'on a pris en compte leur existence et ils se sentent fiers et responsables de protéger cette aire marine protégée. Et donc, les comportements changent, c'est-à-dire qu'ils intègrent mieux les réglementations, ils se sentent comme des passeurs aussi de réglementation vis-à-vis des clients qu'ils vont avoir sur leur bateau. Et c'est vraiment cette sensation-là d'éviter de stigmatiser en fait, les personnes, d'avoir un discours négatif vers eux, mais d'essayer de trouver quelle solution, quelle clé on peut activer pour qu'eux puissent nous aider avec nous à faire avancer le problème. Dans mon autre métier, j'avais eu l'autre version où, en disant « vous êtes les problèmes, vous êtes responsables de la chute », c'était une histoire de Balbuzard avec des bateaux, en leur disant « vous êtes les responsables de ça ». Et ça a créé une tension et un blocage, c'est-à-dire que plus personne ne se parlait et le problème n'avançait pas. Si on accepte de leur dire, bon, bah, petit à petit, je vous emmène vers un chemin et je vous donne les clés d'une communication positive vis-à-vis de vos clients, quel rôle vous pouvez jouer, de les réunir entre eux, d'avoir des discussions de pair à pair entre les skippers aussi, parce que la formation, c'est ça, c'est on réunit 12 personnes, ils discutent entre eux et on dit, bah, quelle méthode vous mettez en place, vous, pour quels éco-gestes vous avez. Et si c'est un autre skipper qui lui dit ce qu'il fait, bah, il voit que c'est quelqu'un comme lui qui le fait. Et il se dit, bah, je peux aussi l'intégrer. Et donc, petit à petit, le groupe avance et va vers quelque chose de plus responsable sur l'aire marine protégée. Donc, c'est un peu ça qu'on a essayé de faire en termes de communication. Alors, sur un problème bien spécifique, on a d'autres moyens de communication pour du grand public quand on met en place des régulations. Ça, on va sur de la presse et tout. Mais le travail de connaissance fine des acteurs du territoire, de créer ce sentiment d'appartenance à une communauté, à un groupe où ils se sentent responsables de ça est vraiment important. Parce qu'après, on peut même leur faire passer d'autres messages. Ça crée un réseau et un lien. Et on a pu communiquer après, par exemple, sur la mortalité des gorgones rouges. Donc, en leur disant, voilà, je vous fais passer cet article sur la mortalité des gorgones rouges un peu en privilégié, en avant-première. Et ils se sentent un peu privilégiés aussi d'avoir une information comme ça. Et après, ils le reprennent eux-mêmes dans des réunions publiques. C'est-à-dire que j'ai eu, par exemple, la Fédération d'industrie du nautisme, que je connais, je lui ai donné l'information et c'est lui, dans une réunion sur le tourisme, qui a pris la parole à la place de l'AMP en disant « Ah, mais arrêtez, on ne peut plus faire ça parce qu'on a vu ce que ça a donné sur les gorgones rouges. » Donc voilà, c'est ce rôle-là qui prend du temps et de l'énergie, de créer ce lien avec les acteurs locaux et de leur donner un rôle. Et ça, je pense que ça peut être positif.
Yeah, I think also that coming from the suggestion of the presentation, I need maybe mainly from the natural capital assessment. Maybe also we need to stress the importance of the relationship as a session made yesterday afternoon, I think, but with the scientific researchers. So because we need also to have a good trying to put this type of also to have from the scientific researchers as manager usable arguments, simple in sometimes elements in order to be spreaded to the general public. And another idea that is maybe Paul maybe can answer this. If there is a difference between information and communication in a technical point of view, because sometimes we use this maybe as synonymous and not.
Well, the communication is about giving information. That means that the information is the subject. I mean, the material that you give, the message that you give, and the communication is a general approach to make this information going to your target. So, I mean, the communication is a technique, is an approach, and the information is a material. One thing I would say about what I heard is we speak about communication, but I think it is very important to understand that to communicate well, you need first to listen and to understand. And to listen and to understand, you have to go to the people that you want to communicate with. You need to go on the fisher boats. You need to go on the markets for the fisher market and so on to get the confidence. Because you cannot communicate well if you don't put before the confidence between the stakeholders and you. And it is a way that you can share the values, as you said before. And for this, you have to show to your audience that you want to be a friend with him and you want to be close to him. This is very important. And the first thing to do when you want to communicate, first you listen.
Any thoughts, any impression?
Yeah. No, I was just thinking like already we comment quite a lot, no, of the values, no, during the presentations. Like for example, the economical values, no, the natural capital that was commented before, and yeah, sometimes like you think there's making it as simple as possible, no? You're giving a even if it's simplifying, like okay, this is costs that, no, this gives you that money, no? So then simplifying like this, at least you're giving a value that is comparable, no? And also your presentation on the lionfish, you know, you are giving the value of the MPAs are more resilient, so then they are not invasive, so less invasive species, for example, no, making this connection with the resilient and with the Posidonia, no, as well. We're talking about the Posidonia. So I think from there we can take many values, no, that we can share, and but try to put it in a simplified way, you know, because sometimes, as you were saying, you know, the scientists they talk one language, and then when we are talking with the private sector, with the general public, so the private sector maybe they care, depends on the private sector, no, but they can care as about having a label or something to be more corporate, you know, more responsible with the marine environment, and then having this as a branding or marketing. So, or other, you care about how much do you sell for the tourists, or so trying to focus on this, no, on the public that you are aiming, no? And simplify in a maximum way, but always taking into account the scientific correctly, no?
Okay. Okay, we can go just because we also talked about stakeholders. We think a relevant question about if you, as manager, you have, do you have a communication plan inside your management plan, or is it a different plan of the communication of the management plan?
Yeah, it's kind of a yes and no answer, but yes, for example, for the invasive alien species valorization program, we were using key performance indicators about how many people should we reach in person, in how many press release that we have to be appeared, and the number of articles, things like that. So that was kind of using, I mean, playing with the rules of the market. That is really beneficial to play with the rules of the market. Yeah, we had a communication plan. And also just to add about the stakeholders, the key stakeholders, we're using some tools like stakeholder involvement to first to define who our stakeholders are, to map them and the level of their influence in our work. So that helps as well when we are communicating with a wide audience, whatever the topic whether it is invasive species or other things that we want to communicate. But that's an important process that you have to go through.
Okay, thank you. And do you expect some help coming from MedPAN as a network to improve your communication activities? Because Pierre has nothing to do, so he needs to do more. And
I can clearly state what are the limits of the possibilities for in your proposals. Yeah, like don't go too far. But indeed, we think this workshop is, of course, for us very important to also better understand what are your needs on the different topics that we are trying to discuss in the sessions, and to see from a network of MPA managers' perspective, where can we help? So here we are talking about communication in this session. So if you have any inputs on this, so it can be specifically about ideas in terms of training to address what you would think are important skills that are not sufficiently covered so far in your MPAs and that have to do with communication. Can be because this is a reference actually to this question is a reference to one recommendation of the MedMPA roadmap that we mentioned, that is about providing MPAs with turnkey customizable tools that can be adapted to your needs. So for example, currently Paul is working on one of these tools that is, oh yeah, exactly, that is to advocate and promote no-take zone strategies in MPAs, but could be others. So it's to get your inputs, your ideas.
Thanks. Tim Cook from Blue Seeds. So for those of you who don't know us at Blue Seeds, we work in the Med to try and implement tools to have a better, let's say, financial sustainability for MPAs. But we have a more general goal, which is to improve management effectiveness, which is a very ambitious goal. And one of the things that we had identified at the beginning of our activity was communication tools. And we were very ambitious then, and we thought, we're gonna become specialists of communication for MPAs because clearly there's a need. MedPAN is beginning something which is not available, and MPA managers who are shy or underrepresented in this room don't, well, they don't speak up, but we know that they don't have the time, and it's a job. And at Blue Seeds, we have this ambition, but we also don't have the time. And so, Paul, I'm glad you are starting this process. We humbly did a toolkit, communication toolkit that we would be absolutely glad to give to the community on how to implement visitor fees, so how to communicate about that. And for me, it was a really interesting process. I know nothing about communication. And I worked with someone at Blue Seeds who was not a communication officer initially, but she worked and sort of self-taught herself. And it was very interesting to see the process through which she went to identify who are we going to address to implement this. You know, it's about profiling potential stakeholders. So we'll be glad to give you this toolkit specifically on implementing visitor fees. But I just want to finish, sorry, Paul, about the fact that there's a general communication of the MPA, and there's specific communication campaigns on specific subjects. And this is a very specific subject, and they are very different projects. You do not communicate in the same way, and you have a step-by-step approach for implementing a project, and you need a year. That was I like round numbers. If you want to get people on board, you start telling them when you're ahead, you're going to start paying. You do a willingness to pay study, you're going to start paying in 1 year, and like, no, but don't worry, it's in 1 year. And then you step by step. It's a magical number, but it gives you a bit of the time frame you need to get something up and running. Obviously, some things take longer, but it's just, yeah, gives you the measure of the question. Sorry, I was long. No. You can't have it.
Back to me.
Okay.
No, but
it's
indeed,
mine.
like, you know, a big part of our job is indeed to also try to pool all available resources. The point for us is never to reinvent the wheel wherever and to duplicate effort wherever there are resources available. When I heard Funda from AKD saying we have a tool for mapping stakeholders mapping for me is it has Blue Seeds too. So you're doing everything. Come on. So give us these tools, because these are the kind of tools, and well, any that are available that I think can, whenever they can be made available to the wider MPA community, are very useful. So from also maybe tools which you use, which you think are useful for communication processes, or any specific idea you would have, of course, we'd be happy to hear from you. Anyone?
I think that as MP, Italian MPA, we don't have officers in the normal position. So to have also communication officers inside the MPA staff, it's very difficult. And for us, sometimes the communication is only 2 photos on Facebook and 1 photo on Instagram. So okay, we done.
Yes, a possible suggestion regarding communication tools could be even related to the concerns related to the impact of the invasive alien species, because it was previously mentioned by the Cyprus representative, but it can be linked to the mapping of all these entities related to the MPAs, and maybe can be organized even workshops on how to use some informatic tools for a preliminary assessment of the impact of these invasive alien species in the relative MPAs. So if the MPA managers would practice on that, those could show in a list of species an assessment, a preliminary assessment, and so it would be a better communication between the other MPAs in this big network in the Mediterranean.
Thank you very much, Riggers. I think that as a German people, we can close only 2 minutes delay. I think we are good people. So thanks you for your attention, for your contribution, and for all the relevant speakers. And okay, we see. in other occasion.